Hi, I'm Ken Habarda. This is a video about converting a roll-top garage door into barn doors or carriage doors. I'm in the end phase of converting a garage into a studio, and I left the door for last only because, well, barn doors, carriage doors are expensive, and I wasn't really quite sure how to deal with the wooden roll-top door. So, rather than taking it all down, bringing it to the garage dump, and getting rid of it, I can reuse it and get the most out of it. What I'm going to do first, and it's also important to have some helpers with you, this isn't a one-man project, is taking apart all the hardware in the door. So I've taken off most of the hardware, and I'm taking off the segment pieces. These are the last few braces holding the segments in place. So once I get these off, we're going to lightly pick this segment up and put it on top of the boards that I have on the floor here. So when we took apart the segments, and you see we've moved them to the floor separately, the bottom piece had suffered a lot of weathering, and it was actually had some brace on it, but it was very soft and rotted wood. So what we're going to do is we're going to split these in half now, down the middle. We're going to line up a line and set up a template to cut it in half. Then probably down here, once we have the segments cut in half, I'm going to trim this piece out, just knock off the whole piece of rotted wood, and then cut two of my 1x4s to length and fit them exactly to that space, because that is roughly about the right size. One really important thing to note when doing this, especially at this stage, is making sure your centers are all lining up, because I'm basically going to split this in half, and we'll have the two lobes of the door. And actually for one side of the door, I'm going to make it kind of like a Dutch door, so it has the top can open and the bottom can open separately. The left side is going to be all in one piece, but what I'm going to do before I cut it is make sure that everything is lined up in the right place, because I really only have one shot at this. Alright, so I've set up my template and I'm about to cut these in half. I'm going to do it very carefully so I don't have to do it twice. I've lined it up, so I'm basically cutting right down the middle of this. I've got my cordless circular saw here, which I feel hopefully is fully charged. Oh. Okay, so that, look, we can take this segment off. It's looking pretty good. Alright, so I've cut the segments down, I've cut them in half, and I've got the pieces on the floor. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take some construction adhesive and I'm going to lay a bead in between the segments. It's good to have an extra person here. I've got my son Oscar with me, who's going to help. After I lay down a bead, we're going to push them together and I'm going to let them dry. Now, like as I mentioned before, I'm making one side a Dutch door, so I'm just doing the two segments at the top and two segments at the bottom. And then I'm going to do the other side completely glued together. So I'm just going to lay in a bead here, right in the groove. These are tongue and groove segments here. Not too thick. And I'm also very mindful of the glass here that we're working with. So we're just going to push these two together, and like I said before, the most important thing here is making sure you've got the edges lined up, nice and centered. Give it a press. together. You're pushing towards me?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So that will be that one. And let that sit. And I'm going to let that sit overnight. Okay. Alright, so I'm laying down another bead here of construction adhesive on the joints. And what's interesting and good and helpful about these garage doors, I mean, one, that they're wood, and that's important because I wouldn't try this with anything that was made out of linoleum or aluminum or vinyl. It's important that they're made out of wood. And these pieces, what's unique about them, they've got a little groove in them already. So they're kind of there's a little ridge that I'm kind of laying the construction adhesive into, and then pushing them together. And now this side is going to be the Dutch door side, so it's going to open 2 and 2, the top part and then the bottom part. Project. And this is about reuse. We're reusing things that would probably go into the trash, and that's probably the most important part of this for me, and hopefully for you too, that you are reusing something that looks good and kind of saves you a trip to the dump and is an inexpensive solution to something that would cost you a lot if you were going to get them new. I've let this sit overnight, and actually just checking the joints where I put the construction adhesive. I probably could have used a lot more. I probably would have doubled the amount I put in there, so lay a much thicker bead. But I'm okay with where it is right now, because it's really just for support and securing the edges or the joints. So what I'm going to do now is lay some bracing across the spines here with the 1x4s. And maybe on this piece I'm going to take some of the particle board and cut pieces exactly for that. Now what you haven't seen what I did here, yesterday we knocked off all the rotted wood. I'm going to add a piece here afterwards that I'm going to use to support the bottom of this. Now I retook the measurements because I looked at the frame of the door, and this is exactly 84 inches from the cement floor to the top. So what I really want to do here, I want a nice snug fit, is I'm going to take a 1/4 inch from the top, and I want it to be about a 1/2 inch from the bottom, and then I'm going to put kind of weather stripping, kind of that rubber garage door rubber across the bottom of these, so when they close, they fit nice and snug, and keep the heat in and the cold out. So what I'm going to have to do, and it's good that we kind of took off that bottom piece, is that I'm going to adjust that piece to a custom length, which is probably going to be these doors, I believe, measure right now 81, so I'm going to need basically a 2 3/4 inch piece that'll fit inside. So I just cut the first piece of OSB for one of the Dutch doors on the left side. So what we're going to do now is screw it to the frame. Now I realize two things. One, that I'm going to need an extra piece at the bottom, but I'm also likely going to have to shave off a part of this to adjust for any anomalies, any weirdness that is going to come from fitting this into the door frame. I'm putting the 1x4s across the pieces here. I'm going to do the same with the larger section in a couple minutes. Now realistically, my construction adhesive didn't really do anything. Now that I've moved it around, I can see that they're not really attached. So if you're going to use construction adhesive, use a lot. Here's one piece that I've already kind of put together on the back of this. It's nice and sturdy and heavy. So this is the bottom half of the one of the Dutch doors. Now what I'm going to do here for this section, I'm going to cut separate pieces of OSB that fit into these spaces and overlap these joints to make it secure. So I just cut these OSB panels to fit in between the braces from the 1x4s that I already put on this piece. This is the top part of the Dutch door side of these doors. So knowing kind of where the thicker part of the wood is, I'm using 2-inch exterior nails, and I'm screwing right through the OSB into the frame of the segment of the overhead door. So what you didn't see, I've already kind of lined these up to match the edges, and I spent a lot of time cutting them because nothing in this world is square, so they're kind of custom cut to the space itself. So now what I'm doing here, I'm looking over at the panel that we have off to the side, the full door, and I'm kind of looking to see where am I going to be sinking this screw so that it goes into the wood and not into the joint of the wood. So that feels about right. So I thought I was going to be done today and wrap this up in 24 hours. Well, this is day 3, day 2, and I've made a lot of progress since the last time we filmed this. All the door pieces are framed and solid, and they are cut. I spent a lot of time cutting the edges, and I've put the hinges on too, on all of them. 5 inches from the top, 10 inches from the bottom. And I was about to put them in. I wanted to size the frames, the pieces of the door against the door opening. And I swear, I measured it twice, measured it 3 times, and now they're going in. I realize that the door opening is not square at all. So now I've got the door pieces that are perfect, and if everything was right and square, they would fit nicely in there, and that would be it. I would be showing you the door pieces, but they aren't. So now I've got these odd pieces, and I've got to still account for the space at the bottom so they can open and close without dragging. It looks like I'm going to have to basically cut and shave pieces off this to make it fit custom. Or I'm going to wind up shimming the sides with wood as best as I can so that they can open freely. That's the important part here, is that they can open and close freely. So. Alright, so we cut down this side of the door to kind of fit the frame. It's not exactly the ideal thing I would like to be doing. I'd rather be kind of basically shimming it up with other pieces. But we're getting close. This door is pretty much, I'm not going to touch it anymore, except when I screw it in. I've got a nice 1/4 inch on the bottom, a 1/2 inch on the bottom, and I've got about 1/8 of an inch along the top of the door itself. But you can see here, this wood is kind of crappy, and like, it's very, it's a little bit sketchy. But we're also dealing with a not square frame, but this is pretty good. The remaining opening here, we've got 54 inches at the bottom, which minus the 1/4 inch for the hinge makes that 53 3/4, plus about a 1/4 inch in between the doors, and that'll take us to about 53 1/2. So our other doors really should be looking at 53 1/2, or at least for the bottom one. And the top, we've got a whole different measurement again. Up here it's like 54 1/2, so we're going to have to work that out, which is not too bad, which is good for us, I guess, in one sense, because we're dealing with Dutch doors, 2 separate doors, a top door and a bottom door, 2 different measurements. Oh, one last thing. What's made this so much easier today, I finally got a corded circular saw from the Habitat for Humanity. It's a Rockwell, probably looks like from the 1970s, and it kind of works like something from the 1970s. I'm gonna have to slap it around a little bit to get it to go, but big difference when cutting these very thick doors than using the cordless, where I've had to recharge a battery every 10 minutes or so. 2 of the 3 doors are in, and I actually went against my judgment and cut the inside part, this part of the door on the smaller side to fit the non-squareness of the opening. So we have the doors in, and now what I want to do is get I want to test them with the hinges on to make sure that the drill holes are right and that the door swings close with a gap in between. Now I don't anticipate I'm going to get this right in the first time, but I'm going to give it a shot. Yeah, so we're going to hang this one, we're going to hang this one, not with all the screws, just with a couple. On this side, and then we'll do that one. And once that's in, I'll even put this last one in over here with the windows. And if they all seem right, I will undo these screws. This is also a test to see if the hinges that I got for these are going to be able to hold the weight of these doors, which are basically on the scale of slab doors, as I've come to find out. So we're at pretty much the final stages. The hinges worked, which is great. And we've got all 3 doors now in place. Lots of shimming, thanks to having my helper here with me. Definitely a 2-person job because these things are heavy. So look, we've got the 3 doors in. We've got the Dutch door for the top. And look, I'm going to be putting in other framing in here later on, but I wanted to get these in first. What you'll see right off the bat is, well, I guess for one, you can't open the bottom door without opening up the top door. That's part of the lip of these. But I've got a little bit of a gap problem here, and I've got to maybe take off a 1/4 inch off of this side. I'll probably do it on the interior where the hinges are. The top, however, is actually pretty good. It opens up. The only thing is, if you look here, you'll see it's not lined up with the outer hinge. This has to go back about 1/2 inch in where we'll put the screws in, and that should take care of that. So here we are at the last step. What I've done since the last piece, I shaved down one side. I painted the bottoms and the edges just to seal off the raw wood. If you remember earlier in this project, we replaced the bottom piece of wood because it was totally rotting away. And I also put on some rubber weather stripping at the bottom. It's not perfect, but it'll do for now. And that's pretty much it. After this, I'm just going to buy gate hardware to keep the doors up and down and to lock the doors together, and then maybe put some hardware on the outside. So we just put the door on, and you can see there's a little bit of a gap here, but I think this is a good gap because what we're going to add to it now, besides the hardware, is the weather stripping, which will keep this, when we close it, nice and snug together. That's about almost exactly 1/2 inch. And check this out. Da-da-da. Overall, I'm really happy about this. You can see with a little bit of extra stripping in there, this will be fine. This will be fine. So you can see here I'm finishing up the painting on these. I've actually figured out one extra thing too that I didn't know going in. I have to add a strip along the middle called an astragal, which covers up the seam, and it adds a little bit of extra weatherproofing, and I'm going to do that separately. But I want to thank you for watching, and I hope that if you're also thinking of doing a project like this, it turns out as well, or if not better, than my own.